Welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast by Brad Young. In this episode, we explore how the legendary Mongol warriors achieved peak physical and mental condition through their training methods, dietary practices, and warrior mindset. By understanding and adapting these ancient techniques, you'll discover powerful strategies to enhance your own performance, resilience, and adaptability in today's challenging world. The Mongol warrior ethos. The foundation of Mongol warrior excellence wasn't just physical prowess, but a deeply ingrained ethos that shaped every aspect of their lives. This warrior culture produced some of history's most formidable fighters through systematic training that began in early childhood and continued throughout their lives. Mongol warriors began their journey to excellence remarkably early, with training starting as young as age 3. Children learned to ride horses before they could properly walk, developing an intuitive connection with their mounts that would later prove invaluable in battle. This early introduction to harsh steppe conditions fostered natural resilience and adaptability that became second nature. Early development. Warriors began training as young as age 3, learning to ride and survive in harsh conditions. Children developed core skills through play that mimicked adult responsibilities, creating a seamless transition to warrior life. Unity and organization. Discipline and unity were central. Squads of 10 Arban, and then companies, Zun, then larger groups, Minghan, trained to move and fight together as one cohesive unit. This organizational structure created both accountability and flexibility, self-reliance. Success depended on self-reliance and adaptability, with every member responsible for their own equipment and readiness. Warriors maintained their own weapons, gathered their own provisions, and solved problems independently. Self-reliance. Success depended on self-reliance and adaptability, with every member responsible for their own equipment and readiness. Warriors maintained their own weapons, gathered their own provisions, and solved problems independently. The Mongol approach to excellence was holistic, integrating physical training with practical skills and mental fortitude. Unlike many warrior cultures that emphasize blind obedience, the Mongols valued initiative and independent thinking within a framework of collective discipline. Each warrior understood their role within the larger unit while maintaining the ability to function autonomously when necessary, a balance that made them extraordinarily effective in varied combat situations. This ethos of disciplined self-reliance combined with collective responsibility created warriors who could endure extreme conditions, adapt to changing circumstances, and perform at peak levels even when separated from central command. Modern peak performers can learn much from this integrated approach to excellence that balances individual mastery with team cohesion. Rigorous physical training, foundations for mastery. The legendary physical capabilities of Mongol warriors didn't develop by accident. Their training regimen was comprehensive, progressive, and integrated into daily life from childhood through adulthood. This systematic approach built not just strength and endurance, but the specific physical capabilities required for their nomadic warrior lifestyle. Lifelong physical development. Daily routines included horseback riding, archery, wrestling, and long distance runs from childhood. Unlike modern exercise programs that often isolate physical activity from daily life, Mongol training was integrated into everyday activities. Children participated in games that mimicked adult skills, such as miniature bow competitions and wrestling matches that taught balance and leverage. As warriors matured, these foundational skills were refined into more sophisticated techniques. Advanced horseback archery required shooting accurately while riding at full gallop, often hitting targets from multiple angles. Wrestling evolved from childhood play to a serious martial discipline that built strength, balance, and tactical thinking. Military drills focused on endurance, coordination, and agility, with week-long exercises that simulated real battles and hunts. These drills often took place in adverse weather conditions, teaching warriors to perform regardless of environmental challenges. Mounted skills. Warriors learned to ride without using hands, shoot in all directions while galloping, and control multiple horses simultaneously. Riding skills were practiced daily, often for 6 to 8 hours. Weapons mastery. Strength and mobility were emphasized through carrying gear, firing heavy composite bows, requiring up to 160 pounds of draw strength, and handling axes, spears, and shields efficiently in various combat scenarios. Endurance building. Long distance running, often while carrying equipment, built cardiovascular capacity and mental toughness. Warriors regularly covered 15 to 20 miles on foot to develop stamina for situations when horses weren't available. What distinguished Mongol physical training was its functionality and integration. Every exercise had a direct application to survival or combat effectiveness. Upper body strength wasn't developed through isolated movements, but through drawing bows, wrestling opponents, and handling weapons. Lower body power came from riding without stirrups, deep squatting positions, and navigating varied terrain. This integrated approach produced warriors with exceptional functional strength, movement efficiency, and physical resilience. By training specifically for the demands of their lifestyle and warfare methods, the Mongols achieved peak physical condition that directly translated to superior performance in their environment, a principle that remains essential for modern peak performers seeking to optimize their physical capabilities for specific goals. The Nerj, ultimate test of body and mind. Among the most remarkable practices of the Mongol warriors was the Nerj, or Great Hunt, a massive coordinated event that served as both practical food gathering and comprehensive training exercise. This annual tradition represented perhaps the ultimate expression of Mongol organizational discipline and individual excellence, combining physical endurance, tactical thinking, and collective coordination on an extraordinary scale. The Nerj wasn't merely a hunt, but a monumental military exercise that could last for months and cover hundreds of miles of territory. It demanded extraordinary endurance, unwavering discipline, and intense focus from every participant. Warriors would form enormous human circles, sometimes spanning 200 kilometers in diameter, and gradually contract inward, herding animals toward a central killing ground. Preparation phase. Weeks before the Nerj began, scouts would identify target areas and plan the massive operation. Leaders would organize thousands of warriors into precise formations, with each person understanding their exact role and position. Encirclement. Thousands moved in sync, forming a human cordon that could span over 100 miles. Each warrior maintained exact spacing and pace, often in challenging terrain and weather for days or weeks. Compression. The circle gradually tightened over days or weeks, with warriors maintaining formation while herding animals inward. This phase tested patience and positional discipline, as breaking formation would allow animals to escape. Harvest. The final phase required coordinated action to efficiently harvest animals without waste or chaos. Specific animals were selected for killing, while others were released, demonstrating restraint and resource management. The Nerj's true significance lay in how it forged mental toughness and collective capability. Warriors learned to maintain position and focus despite exhaustion, hunger, and extreme weather. They developed patience through days of slow, methodical movement. Leaders honed command skills by coordinating massive groups over vast distances, often using only signal flags, drums, and prearranged protocols. This extraordinary exercise created warriors who could function with perfect discipline within a larger system while maintaining individual resilience and decision-making capacity. The Nerji transformed theoretical training into practical application at scale, testing every physical and mental attribute in real-world conditions. For modern peak performers, the Nerj offers powerful lessons about combining individual excellence with team coordination, maintaining focus through prolonged challenges, and developing the patience to execute long-term strategies with precision. Its comprehensive approach to testing both body and mind represents an ideal template for holistic performance development. Eating for endurance, what fueled the Mongol army? The Mongol warriors' extraordinary physical capabilities were supported by a distinctive nutritional approach that prioritized energy density, practicality, and nutritional completeness. Their diet stands in stark contrast to many modern eating patterns, focusing on simple, nutrient-rich foods that sustain performance through extreme conditions and prolonged exertion. At the core of the Mongol warrior diet was a pragmatic approach to nutrition that maximized calories and essential nutrients while minimizing preparation time and transportation requirements. Unlike sedentary Agricultural societies that relied heavily on grains, the nomadic Mongols centered their nutrition around animal products that provided complete proteins, essential fats, and micronutrients in concentrated form. Meals were remarkably simple but calorically dense. Warriors often consumed dried meats, borts, that could be carried for weeks without spoiling. This traditional preparation involved cutting meat into thin strips, drying it in the sun or over smoke, and grinding it into a powder that could be reconstituted with hot water to make a nutritious broth. A small pouch of borts could sustain a warrior for days, providing essential protein and fat without requiring cooking or preparation. Hydration strategies were equally practical. While water formed the foundation of fluid intake, fermented mare's milk, arag, served as a nutritional supplement that provided probiotics, electrolytes, and modest alcohol content that may have helped preserve the drink while offering mild antibacterial benefits. Protein sources. Meat formed the foundation of the warrior diet, particularly horse, sheep, and occasionally game. Organ meats were prized for their nutrient density, with liver, heart, and kidneys consumed for their vitamin and mineral content. Fermented dairy, arag, fermented mare's milk, and various cultured dairy products provided probiotics, calcium, and essential fats. These foods supported digestive health and immune function during prolonged campaigns. Limited carbohydrates. While not central to their diet, warriors consumed modest amounts of foraged wild roots, berries, and traded grains when available. These foods provided supplemental energy and micronutrients. Hydration. Water formed the primary hydration source, supplemented with arag and blood from their horses in emergency situations. Warriors were trained to function on minimal water when necessary. The Mongol nutritional approach has striking parallels to modern performance nutrition principles. Their emphasis on protein for muscle maintenance, healthy fats for sustained energy, and fermented foods for gut health aligns with contemporary understanding of optimal performance nutrition. The simplicity and portability of their food choices eliminated decision fatigue and maximized compliance, a principle many modern athletes and performers strive to implement. For today's peak performers, the Mongol dietary approach offers valuable lessons about nutritional pragmatism, prioritizing nutrient-dense whole foods, maintaining simplicity to ensure consistency, and adapting eating patterns to support specific performance demands rather than following arbitrary cultural eating schedules or trends. The Mongol warrior mindset, discipline, adaptability, and resilience. Perhaps the most valuable aspect of the Mongol warrior tradition for modern peak performers lies in their psychological approach. The Mongol warrior mindset represented a sophisticated balance of seemingly contradictory qualities. Disciplined obedience alongside independent thinking, fierce individualism within cohesive teamwork, and stoic endurance complemented by tactical flexibility. At the foundation of the Mongol psychological framework was extraordinary mental resilience. From childhood, future warriors were exposed to progressive hardship, riding in extreme weather, enduring hunger during training exercises, and navigating challenging terrain. These experiences weren't random sufferings, but calibrated challenges designed to expand psychological comfort zones and develop confidence in facing adversity. Independent decision making. Warriors were skilled in making sound judgments with or without direct orders. They understood the strategic objectives so thoroughly that they could adapt tactics to changing conditions while maintaining alignment with overall goals. This balance of autonomy and alignment created forces that could fragment and regroup seamlessly. Mental fortitude. Training honed not just physical, but mental toughness through systematic exposure to isolation, cold, hunger, and prolonged stress. Warriors learned to maintain focus and effectiveness despite discomfort, developing what modern psychology might call stress inoculation through progressive challenge. Collective motivation. Loyalty to the tribe and to the mission reinforced motivation and accountability. The Mongol social structure created powerful incentives for excellence, with status and rewards directly tied to performance and contribution to collective success. What made the Mongol mindset particularly effective was its integration of these psychological elements. Warriors weren't merely taught to endure suffering stoically. They learned to think clearly and make sound decisions while under duress. They weren't simply trained to follow orders, they were developed to understand strategic objectives so thoroughly that they could improvise effectively when conditions changed. This integrated psychological approach produced warriors with extraordinary mental flexibility. They could transition from patient waiting to explosive action, from individual initiative to synchronized group movement, from ruthless aggression to disciplined restraint, all based on what the situation demanded rather than personal preference or habit. For modern peak performers, the Mongol mindset offers a powerful template for psychological development, building mental resilience through progressive challenge, developing decision making skills that function under pressure, and cultivating the rare ability to balance individual initiative with team cohesion. These mental qualities, more than any physical attribute, may represent the most valuable legacy of the Mongol warrior tradition for today's achievement oriented individuals. Tools and weapons. Preparedness is peak performance. The Mongol approach to equipment and weaponry reveals key principles about peak performance that transcend their historical context. For these warriors, tools weren't merely practical implements, but extensions of themselves that required mastery, maintenance, and integration into their overall capability system. At the center of Mongol military technology was the legendary composite bow, an engineering marvel that required up to 2 years to craft but delivered unmatched power and precision. Made from layers of wood, horn, sinew, and birch bark, these bows generated tremendous force while remaining light enough for mounted archery. A skilled warrior could accurately hit targets at 200 yards while riding at full gallop, a feat requiring extraordinary coordination, strength, and proprioceptive awareness. Mastering this weapon demanded years of dedicated practice. Warriors began with lighter training bows in childhood, progressively increasing draw weight as they developed strength. They practiced shooting from every conceivable position, standing, kneeling, lying prone, and most importantly, from horseback at various gaits. This systematic skill development created archers of unparalleled versatility who could adapt their shooting technique to any combat scenario. Beyond weapons, Mongol warriors carried a comprehensive toolkit for self sufficiency: knives for multiple purposes, axes for both combat and utility, ropes for various applications, repair kits for equipment maintenance, and survival gear for harsh conditions. Each warrior was essentially a self contained operational unit capable of sustaining themselves for extended periods. The composite bow. The primary weapon demanded upper body strength and coordination. Firing with accuracy at full gallop required drawing forces of 100 to 160 pounds. Warriors developed specialized muscle groups through thousands of repetitions, creating both the physical capacity and neural pathways for instinctive accuracy. Self sufficiency kit. Warriors carried a comprehensive toolkit: knives, axes, ropes, repair kits, and survival gear for complete self reliance. Every warrior could hunt, repair equipment, treat basic injuries, and survive independently when separated from the main force. Skill integration. Mastery of weapons dovetailed with mastery of self, readiness to adapt to any scenario. Tools were not separate from the warrior, but extensions of capability that became instinctive through constant practice and integration. The Mongol approach to equipment offers profound lessons for modern peak performers. First, they understood that tools are only as effective as the skill with which they're wielded. They invested thousands of hours in systematic practice to develop mastery. Second, they recognized that preparedness creates confidence and adaptability. Carrying comprehensive equipment reduced cognitive load during crisis situations. Perhaps most importantly, the Mongols demonstrated that true mastery comes from integrating tools so completely that they become extensions of oneself. Just as the bow became an extension of the warrior's body through countless repetitions, modern peak performers can achieve similar integration with their essential tools, whether physical equipment, digital technology, or conceptual frameworks, through deliberate practice and progressive skill development. Modern adaptation, the Mongol Warriors Workout Challenge, drawing inspiration From the training methods of Mongol warriors, this modern workout challenge integrates physical conditioning with mental fortitude development. It's designed to build not only raw physical capacity, but also the psychological resilience and adaptability that characterized these legendary fighters. The Mongol warriors workout combines cardiovascular conditioning, strength development, explosive power, and mental focus in a comprehensive challenge that can be scaled to different fitness levels. While not replicating the specific activities of 13th century warriors, it captures the essential physical demands and psychological challenges they faced in a format accessible to contemporary practitioners. Preparation. Begin with a 10-minute dynamic mobility warm up, including walking lunges, high knees, arm circles, hip rotations, and gentle torso twists. This mimics the Mongol practice of preparing the body for varied movements and challenges. Main cycle. Repeat 3 times. 400-meter run at sustainable pace, simulating long ride. 50 horse stance squats, deep hold 10 seconds every 5 reps. 40 push ups, wide hands, simulating drawing heavy bow. 20 burpee broad jumps, mimicking explosive movement. 2 minutes plank, simulating carrying saddle and gear. 5 minutes shadow archery with resistance band. Mental challenge. After each round, perform 2 minutes of silent mindfulness. Visualize riding through wind and challenging terrain. Focus on breath and maintaining readiness despite fatigue. This develops the capacity to remain mentally clear during physical exhaustion. Recovery. Complete the session with gradual cool down movements and controlled breathing. Reflect on performance and identify areas for improvement, embracing the Mongol principle of continuous refinement. Scaling options. Beginners can reduce repetitions by 50% and focus on form. Intermediate practitioners can perform the workout as written. Advanced athletes can add weight vests 10 to 20 pounds to simulate armor and increase resistance band tension for shadow archery. What makes this workout effective is its integration of physical challenges with mental elements. The varied movement patterns prevent adaptation and develop well rounded physical capacity. The high repetition format builds not just strength, but muscular endurance, the ability to express power repeatedly over time. The mental components teach focus under fatigue, a critical skill for peak performance in any domain. For optimal results, perform this workout 1 to 2 times weekly alongside other training modalities. As with any intense exercise program, proper nutrition and recovery are essential. Incorporate the nutritional principles from the Mongol dietary approach for best results. Prioritize protein intake, consume nutrient dense whole foods, and maintain adequate hydration before, during, and after training. Integrating the Mongol way into everyday life. The principles that made Mongol warriors exceptional performers can be translated into powerful practices for modern life. While few of us need to master horseback archery or survive on the steppe, the underlying approaches to discipline, simplicity, and adaptability remain remarkably relevant for today's peak performers. The foundation of Mongol excellence was consistency. Daily practices performed with focused intensity rather than sporadic bursts of extreme effort. This principle translates directly to modern performance psychology, where research consistently shows that regular, deliberate practice outperforms occasional maximum effort. By implementing brief but focused daily routines, you can develop the same kind of progressive mastery that characterized Mongol warriors. And another key element was their approach to nutrition. The Mongol diet wasn't based on complicated formulas or exotic ingredients, but on simple, nutrient dense whole foods consumed according to activity demands rather than rigid schedules. This straightforward nutritional philosophy, prioritizing protein, embracing healthy fats, consuming fermented foods, and staying adequately hydrated, remains sound advice for modern performers seeking optimal physical and cognitive function. Perhaps most valuable is the Mongol approach to adaptability. They systematically train to function effectively across varied terrains, weather conditions, and tactical situations. This deliberate exposure to changing circumstances built neural flexibility and confidence that transferred to new challenges. Modern performers can cultivate similar adaptability by regularly varying their routines, environments, and methods. building the capacity to maintain effectiveness regardless of external conditions. Daily discipline. Consistency is key. Short bursts of focused, high discipline activity daily develop long term resilience. Set aside 15 to 30 minutes each morning for a warrior practice. This might be physical training, focused mental work, or skill development. The specific activity matters less than the consistency and intensity of focus. Nutritional simplicity. Fuel with simple, whole foods and stay hydrated. Avoid processed distractions. Create a basic nutritional framework of quality proteins, vegetables, fruits, and healthy fats. Minimize food decisions through simple meal templates that can be adjusted based on activity levels. Cultivated adaptability. Practice adaptability, change your route, try new skills, challenge your routine regularly. Deliberately introduce controlled variability into your training, work, and learning environments. This might mean working in different locations, varying exercise modalities, or approaching problems through different cognitive frameworks. Implementing these principles doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes. Start with small, consistent practices that align with your current goals and gradually expand. For example, begin with 5 minutes of focused breathing each morning, then add a brief physical practice, then incorporate nutritional adjustments. Over time, these small changes compound into significant improvements in capability and resilience. Remember that the Mongol warrior ethos wasn't about perfection, but about continuous improvement and pragmatic effectiveness. They valued what worked over what was theoretically ideal or aesthetically impressive. This results oriented mindset, focusing on real world outcomes rather than appearances, remains perhaps the most valuable lesson from their approach to performance. Conclusion. Embrace the Mongol spirit for peak performance. Throughout this exploration of Mongol warrior practices, we've uncovered timeless principles that transformed ordinary herdsmen into history's most formidable fighting force. These principles, discipline, unity, adaptability, and self-reliance, remain as relevant for today's peak performers as they were for the 13th century warriors on the Eurasian steppe. The Mongol approach to excellence wasn't based on special talents or advantages, but on systematic training, practical nutrition, and psychological development that anyone could adopt. They demonstrated that extraordinary performance comes not from innate gifts, but from consistent application of proven principles, a message of profound importance for anyone seeking to reach their potential. Peak performance. The culmination of discipline, nutrition, mindset, and practical skills integrated into a cohesive whole. True excellence emerges when these elements work in harmony. Warrior mindset. Developing mental resilience, decision making under pressure, and the balance between individual initiative and team cohesion. The psychological foundation that supports all other capabilities. Practical nutrition. Fueling performance with simple, nutrient-dense foods that support energy, recovery, and cognitive function. Prioritizing protein, healthy fats, and whole food sources. Systematic training. Building physical capabilities through consistent, progressive challenge. Developing not just strength, but endurance, coordination, and functional movement skills. What makes the Mongol approach particularly valuable is its integrated nature. They didn't separate physical training from mental development or nutrition from practical skills. Instead, they understood that peak performance emerges from the harmonious development of all these elements, creating capabilities greater than the sum of their parts. Peak performance isn't a secret, just relentless commitment, resourcefulness, and the will to thrive no matter the terrain. As you implement these principles in your own life, remember that the journey to excellence is progressive. The Mongols didn't expect warriors to master all skills immediately, but built capability through years of consistent practice. Give yourself the same patience while maintaining high standards and regular challenges that push your boundaries. The ultimate lesson from the Mongol warrior tradition is perhaps the most encouraging. Extraordinary performance is available to anyone willing to embrace discipline, simplicity, and continuous improvement. Their example reminds us that human potential far exceeds what most of us imagine, and that with the right approach, we can all develop capabilities that might seem impossible at first glance. By adopting their training methods, nutritional wisdom, and psychological principles, you too can develop the resilience, adaptability, and excellence that made the Mongol warriors legends in their time and inspirations in ours. The path to peak performance lies open before you. You need only the courage and commitment to follow it. Thank you for listening to the Peak Performance Podcast. Please like and subscribe. As always, there is a document attached with the information from this episode.